The Hamlet Act that preceded Joe Biden's official entry into the presidential race doesn't seem to have hurt him with voters. Recent polls show that right now, Biden is the clear Democratic frontrunner with a commanding lead over Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. And after catching him in action in New Hampshire, Adam Reilly says that even though Biden's tics could prove problematic down the road, he still has a talent for forging an emotional connection with voters.
He said there were some very fine people in both groups. Not a single president in American history has ever said anything remotely approaching that.
When Joe Biden railed against President Trump at a house party in Nashua this week, he sounded like a frustrated dad whose kid just hasn't been acting like himself.
That's not who we are. We're the United States of America. That's what made us who we are.
To be clear, the kid in this analogy isn't the president. Instead, it's American politics, which Biden is convinced are fundamentally bipartisan and decent. He's sure of this because of his own experience, which includes 3.5 decades in the Senate.
There were an awful lot of really great people I worked with. We can get back to that place.
Which brings me to my first Biden takeaway. He sees Trump not as a symptom, but a cause, a political outlier who's messed up our political equilibrium. And he believes that if Trump is defeated in 2020, things will go back to normal.
And the best way to change it, and I'm not joking, is to get Donald Trump out of that office.
Of course, offering the past as a model for the present carries some risks, among them sounding like the grandpa on The Simpsons.
So I tied an onion to my belt, which was the style at the time.
Which Biden sometimes does.
The story goes that at the time, Washington had a hot cup of tea in his hand with a saucer. Mike Mansfield, Iron Mike from Montana, more integrity in his little finger than most people had in their own body. My grandpa Finnegan used to say, quote Harry Truman, they yelled, Harry, give him hell. He said, no.
So here's Biden takeaway number 2. He is so taken with the good old days that voters who don't share his enthusiasm might not warm to his candidacy. And to my eye, he's got another problem.
This idea that the crime bill generated mass incarceration. It did not generate mass incarceration.
After a question about the 1994 crime bill, which he helped write, Biden spent considerable time defending it and almost no time acknowledging the difference race makes in the criminal justice system. He also made no mention of his 1991 treatment of Anita Hill or his physical interactions with women. In other words, he was in no mood to apologize, which is my third Biden takeaway. And yet...
But I was really pleased to hear Joe Biden talk about that spirit of unity.
I think he has a message for everyone. And I was really impressed that he was the man I thought he was.
And I'm going to vote for him.
So based on today,
yeah.
The voters I talked to in Nashua seemed almost dazzled after Biden wrapped up. Maybe because he seemed so unguarded and idealistic to a fault. It was only one event, but that's not a bad impression to make.
Adam Reilly joins me. Let me just get the onion off my... Okay. So, the common tired pundit line until he entered the race was, the best day for the Biden campaign is going to be the day that he enters.
Yep.
Totally untrue.
Yeah.
He's not only front, he's exploding in the polls. Do you get a feel of why that is?
I bought the idea that it was all about name recognition, and you see his numbers go down, and I was totally wrong. I'm speculating here, but a couple things. There is something comforting about the idea that Donald Trump is a black swan kind of event, and if he is defeated, we'll just go back to being the way we used to be. I don't think that happens to be correct, but that's the argument that Biden makes. And also, our colleague Azita was talking to me today about how at the last Democratic convention, Biden was the only big-name politician she saw who wanted to spend time again and again talking with ordinary people. And you see the clumsiness when you don't want to nuzzle a woman's head, but he really wants to connect with each and every person he sees. So people probably like that too.
We don't want to go overboard here. I mean, obviously there was not, I assume, unanimous embrace of this guy. Is there any of that he's a relic of the past thing that you saw?
I mean, no? the people I talked to all happen to like him. I might have missed all the ones who didn't. Another reporter showed me a social media post from a Democratic activist before the event started, and it was the most withering, not from this event, but a previous event, saying, I saw Biden ramble on today for an hour. He's clearly lost his fastball. He means well, but he's a liability to the Democrats. So I don't think their reaction's universal.
Last thing, can we go back to the beginning just for a minute? He's expanding his lead. I saw a poll this morning, nationally. He's leading everybody in every demographic except one, millennials. And who do the millennials support? The 76-year-old Bernie Sanders. Can you explain what's going on?
I can offer another half-baked
feel
theory,
free,
and
go.
that is that Joe Biden talks again and again, and as you know, Donald Trump does this too in a very different way. He talks about the good old days. Let's go back to how things used to be. Sanders introduces these ideas of completely transforming the way we do things, like with single-payer health care. So that's my best guess.
You know what Biden's hat's going to be? Make America Great Again. That's what he's going to end up
work.
doing. Adam, great report. Thanks so much.